All right. So this is my 10 minute speaking. 10 minutes. So this is my 10 minute speaking. So let's do it. Let's assume with of public speaking, so right. So you're about to go down on the stage and feel anxiety. The usual, the default state of someone who doesn't want to have that experience is just trying to do it out. Is want to you even find to worry about the experience. I mean, anxiety is kind of just like mere thought of what I have to do. Then once you feel the butterflies, you avoid them, right? You contract, your mind contract about it. Your conversation with yourself is that big one is like, what am I? This person who just can like see the people who do all the time, they are relaxed, I'm unhappy. You know, where am I? You're just talking to yourself, you're not noticing it because you just come up behind you as fast as they can. And they can see to be you try to do the different thoughts that they burst in consciousness. And most people live their lives after thought there's an alternative. Rejecting the rule book for how to operate a human mind, right? There's no place in the normal the education where we are as indicated that they are undeserved here, and so we get try to stumble out to adulthood. While assuming that we have always have the minds that we have that really there's we only the thing to do to really upgrade our firmware is to just add new content. We can report, we can develop interest, but there's nothing that is the root level of our emotional and cognitive life that can change. If you feel anxiety, there's actually a place from which you can just feel it, right? And be absolutely indifferent to it or anything else you could be feeling. I mean, just understand even unpleasant sensation. But first, the anxiety isn't even that unpleasant. It's so close to excitement. And it's actually also physiology. The really difference between excitement and anxiety is more or less just reframing. Just the story, just the new stuff. New stuff, these tingles and this stimulate and rest response right before you're about to go on a roller coaster. That part of why you're going to a roller coaster, you experience right by the fact that you feel that way when you're about to have an interview or you're about to walk on a stage. That's intolerable, right? So just dropping back and realizing the power of framing is again this skill and it's fairly altruistic one, but many people are learning us to get the secrets out. Most of what people care about can be thought of as a skill. I mean, maybe it's a skill, not suffering unnecessarily. It's a skill noticing your emotional life and regulating negative emotion. It is a skill. The moment you begin practicing mindfulness, you just learning to pay close attention to the nature of your experience and then to experience just noticing what it's like to be moment to moment, what a way that is non-reactive, you are not grasping a present or pursuing your unpleasant in a way you just that is a story of telling yourself a story you're thinking, and you can either become more and more mindful of what here interrupt that more and more. You can reframe this continually and tell yourself a better story, but you can also just engineer. You can change the code that you're learning moment to moment. Sort of use of negative imagination where you think of all the bad things that haven't happened to you, right? So just sit traffic drive into the job that you don't like and you're frustrated. You can think of all the things that could happen to you, right? That haven't. And if any one of them happened to you, you would consider your prayers answered if you could just be returned to this moment. You could be the guy who today is going to find out you've got 2 months left, right? You have to, the next 2 months is spent just unwinding your worldly affairs, right? You're that guy, right? It hasn't happened to you yet. It's just more thinking. It can have a profound effect. You can reframe the experience in a way that doesn't actually change anything material by your circumstance. You can let the right in, and there's things like that that are just a matter of evoking useful concepts skillfully. So picture that you're in an airplane and it begins to bounce, and Even those of us who aren't especially afraid to fly can feel anxious in insignificant turbulence. Now, why do we feel anxious? Well, we have some thought that turbulence might be dangerous, right? That it makes it more likely the plane will crash. And, of course, surely significant turbulence can cause the plane to crash. But this is where we know from the statistic of plane crashes is a very, very rare thing. So now, unless you are in that rare and horrible experience of being absolutely thrown down the cabin so as to get injured, if you're likely the bouncing, it's not physically painful, right? It's you're not being harmed. But it's sensation, and in other contexts, you subject yourself to even more violent bouncing and not being bothered about it, or you might go stump grind and amusement park with a shirt greater force on your body, and you do it because you're seeking that experience else. Now an airplane is totally unwelcome to you. We just take the raw sensations, they're not your problem. It's what they pretended. It's your interpretation of them that worries you. There are at least two levels that in which you can deal with this. First is to think conceptually about the nature of the problem and about what you fear. Is it rational to worry that your plane will crash if you're experiencing the turbulence? No, as long as it isn't like likelihood of dying in a plane crash. It's minuscule. Over the course of your journey, you should begin to worry as you leave the airport and get in an Uber or a taxi or drive yourself home in your own car. So, if you understand that, if you understand that every moment in a plane is in fact safer than the moments you spend on the crowd, certainly safer than when you're working as a pedestrian fixated on your smartphone and stepping into the crosswalk. That's when your adrenaline surcharge. Those are moments where the sweat should begin beating up on your forehead. Swinging the plane and it's meant to bounce. This is in fact unreasonable to worry that the bouncing means much of anything. If you understand that actually can have an effect, they can become willing to just experience the wrong sensation of turbulence. Then you can cease to interpret this experience as a sign of actual danger. At the level which you can address is this and these are totally compatible moves and recommend both of them is to become mindful of the feeling of anxiety itself. What is it? And what does it mean? Well, it's just sensation is just a product of energy in your body, and it actually doesn't mean anything. At the level of our sensation, we have talked about it, and very much of anything in one's purpose toward to figure out how to not feel it or not to let it worse. You would step out of your thoughts and just become willing to feel the raw sensation of anxiety and they just surrender your resistance to it. Just feel it as energy. It can lose its meaning. It can become very difficult to distinguish from what another framing would be a positive experience like excitement. How do you know the difference between anxious about something that's about to happen and being excited? For the most part, it is thoughts with thinking arousal. And there's a cognitive, conceptual overlay on top of this raw feeling. You can constantly reframe the things, or you can step out of it altogether and just feel the raw energy of this experience. And when you do that, anxiety can be like any other experience that has no meaning for you as a person. It really doesn't say anything about you. So let's say you have a rash on your elbow and it's itching. Okay, that doesn't say anything deep about you as a person. It has no physiological implication. It's maybe unless maybe extraordinary unpleasant, but it doesn't reach into your sense of who you are. The best way to respond to anxiety. And again, I'm not saying that there's no case in which drugs are valuable or even necessary. They may very well be, but for anxiety, it is more ordinary range. The way to respond to it is to become willing to feel it, to cease to interpret it as important and to function in the midst of it, and then it will pass. Anxiety rises and falls like any other emotion. You're not continually thinking the thoughts that make you anxious. Actually, they can't stay around very long. It is true of other unpleasant emotions like anger and sadness, and they are continually resurrected by our thoughts. We're spending most of our time thinking without knowing what we're thinking. So mindfulness in particular is a very good antidote to this problem. But the trick is you can't apply it as an antidote. You can't be mindful of anxiety so that it will go away. Become willing to feel it. It's just like it burn bright in you and discover that it doesn't matter. It simply comes and goes and you can functional. Um, okay, so this is the end of this video, of this 10 minutes video. So before I move to the 30 minutes video, I have to go downstairs to wash some dishes, and then I'm gonna hear later. Okay, so bye guys.